Many of our award recipients are in the forefront of the struggle for this new agenda. Manfred Max Neef is now one of the top 3 contenders for the presidency of Chile in next year's elections. But while most of us choose one level of activity, the local, national, or global, a few manage to live on all 3, and none more so than Vandana Shiva, a global citizen who has never lost her roots, equally at home in an Indian village, a Scandinavian university, and a tribunal on the World Bank or GATT. As activist, advocate, and academic, Vandana Shiva is equally effective and dedicated. She has coordinated grassroots networks on a wide range of issues across India. She's one of the most articulate spokespersons in favor of people-centered participatory processes and cultural and biological diversity. She has published a large number of important books and articles on environment and development issues. Her next book is called Monocultures of the Mind. It is with great pleasure that I present the 1993 Right Livelihood Award to Vandana Shiva. Education for coexistence and tolerance is today of crucial importance for our common humanity. There are few areas where such work is both more vital and more difficult than where care and learning operates. Care and Learning was founded by Arna Meir Khamis in defense of the children in the occupied Palestinian territories who have suffered physically, emotionally, and academically in ways that risk to scar their lives permanently. Care and Learning is but the latest of a string of organizations and initiatives through which she has articulated her passionate, lifelong commitment to justice and human rights. Her vision, fearless energy, and love for the children of Palestine has made Care and Learning a beacon of light in a stormy sea of repression, holding out hope for a brighter future and showing joint Israeli-Palestinian creative activity for peace and human rights at its best. It is with great pleasure that I ask Arna Meir Khamis, accompanied by one of her dedicated Palestinian colleagues, Nawal Steti, to accept the Right Livelihood Award 1993 on behalf of Care and Learning. The 20-year struggle of Mary and Carrie Dan for their ancestral land is a remarkable example of courage and integrity. They are indeed models of right livelihood. Their struggle is not just against personal injustice, but against the efforts of the US government to usurp and exploit the native territory of their nation. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the US and the Western Shoshone Nation has been unilaterally undermined by the US government in ways which it would never recognize if it had happened elsewhere. Shoshone resources have been mined without compensation, and worst of all, almost 1,000 nuclear bombs have been tested on Shoshone land since 1951, the most recent in 1990. The struggles of Mary and Carrie Dan have become a symbol of Native peoples' endeavors to assert their rights. Your perseverance against overwhelming odds is an inspiration to many. It is with great pleasure that I ask Carrie Dan to accept the 1993 Right Livelihood Award for yourself and your sister Mary. And I would like to say that we're also very honored to have with us here tonight Chief Yoel, Head of State of the Shoshone Nation. People-centered development in practice. For over 1 million people in over 800 village groups working to maintain their culture and traditional knowledge and master outside interventions in their way of life. That is ORAP. Its scope covers all areas of village life: domestic and craft activities, community livelihood and income-generating projects, training, education and cultural activities, traditional medicine, etc. During the recent, exceptionally severe drought in southern Africa, the structures of the Organization of Rural Associations for Progress enabled it to respond collectively and forcefully and survive, remaining in control of the aid received. To maintain the original cohesion and spirit under such conditions, after having grown to become the largest development movement in southern Africa, is a remarkable achievement. Sithembiso Nyoni has from the beginning played a key catalytic role in this unique endeavor, and it is with great pleasure that I ask her and Mr. Themba Ndweni to accept the 1993 Right Livelihood Award on behalf of ORAP.
We feel a deep respect and admiration before Mary and Carrie Dan's struggle for the rights of their people. We know that such a struggle calls for personal courage. Carrie Dan has that courage. This struggle has given her a good, strong voice. She has been advised by one of her young relatives to spare that voice somewhat tonight. And with that advice, I give you the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, honorable members of the Parliament, and ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful to be here in your country. First, I want to thank the Right Livelihood Award Committee and the people that has worked hard to have an Indigenous person as one of your recipients of this award. I am just one of the many people, many Indigenous people, that work on the right to live on our land in our traditional ways, the right to practice our religious beliefs under the instruction of our Creator. I am from the Indigenous nation of the Western Shoshone people, the Heartland, and in the Great Basin, also known as State of Nevada. I was born and raised there by my traditional family. I'm a very hardworking person, and I raise livestock, and crops are the things I have most knowledge of. We, the human children of this earth, we have our cultures, our tradition, and our language, and we would all like to keep them, as they identify us as one of the many species of people of the earth. Our Indigenous people believe that this earth, this land, is our mother. As Sweden, a small part of Europe is your mother. Our mother, the earth, she gives us all the necessities of life. She feeds us, she clothes us, she gives us shelter, and she cradles us. Our Indigenous situation today is such there is no way to forget or to ignore the past. To do so would be to ignore the current situation. Knowing that maybe just half of those that still live on our land, that our ancestors lived on for thousands of years, many of these nations still maintain our traditions, and we have suffered numerous atrocities, but our teachings still go on. I come from what you also know as United States of America, which is built around which is built around many national identities. You hear words strongly stress images of freedom, liberty, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. I suppose a classic knowledge of America, it is a melting pot with people of all nationalities, where people seek dreams of personal freedom, coming from their own oppressive communities to join an exposed nation built around constitutional rights and humanity. We, the Indigenous people, we have withstood wave after wave of foreigners, starting with Spanish, English, Dutch, French, and most nations of the world come to our country, and they say, we have found a new world. This world was occupied by people and is still populated by the same people, the Indigenous people. The people that had a civilization that lived in harmony with its natural surrounding and respected all forms of life. Spaniards, when they first arrived, as Columbus described it, it was paradise. That was up until he found gold statues, and that we were not of the Christian faith. Since that time, the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere has been described as savages, heathens, infidels, and basically labeled as one of our relatives, the four-legged, the coyote. Upon finding the gold statues, the Spaniards went wild. They destroyed that civilization. This gold fever has not stopped yet. Today, the country of the Western Shoshone people is being torn up in the name of gold. Today, million gallons of precious water is pumped to get to the microscopic gold deposits. Chemicals like cyanide, very dangerous, is used to extract that mineral that caused destruction of civilized nation, is now going to be destructive of our earth, our mother.
I was born over 60 years ago in a very small community in Palestine, in a Jewish moshava, Rosh Pina, near the village, the Arab village, Jauni. These villages, on the rocks and the green hills of the Upper Galilee, between the Sea of Galilee and the Lebanese border, were at that time under the British mandate. Since 1948, Jewish Rosh Pina has grown and developed, whereas the village of Jauni has been erased from the face of the earth. Its inhabitants became what we term the Palestinian refugees, dispersed from their homeland and confined in camps. Even the land, the source of livelihood and the foundation of entire culture, passed into the hands of others through sheer robbery or forced displacement. This has left a deep wound in my soul. While one half of me is intact, the other bears the terrible pain of that reality. In this land were sown the seeds of racism and suffering, wars and death and pain. An entire nation stands before us, bereft of human rights, where children grow up surrounded by imagery of soldiers, stones, and guns. They are scared, they are threatened, they are vulnerable, and their cries of suffering are drowned by loudspeakers screaming about law, order, security, progress. I came towards these children with the burden of my past, my broken half. I tried to tear away the veil of hypocrisy and crime piled up like rubbish on the streets of Jenin and its refugee camp. The camp, the refugee camp, was erected 45 years ago, and its children and grandchildren were born face Israeli occupation to this very day. It is in the name of all these children that I have come here to speak to you in a language of life, in a language of hope. Today, on this occasion, we can listen to the resounding human cry of thousands and millions of children throughout the world, and especially the Palestinian children on whose behalf I have come. They are telling us, you have obligation toward us. Yes, we owe them something. These children are the hope of tomorrow. It is imperative that we reveal the hypocrisy which leaves these children wounded on the battlefield without first aid. Their wounds are deep, even though they are not bleeding. Their souls and spirits are wounded, their development handicapped. There are children beaten and shot who have witnessed their parents and siblings being humiliated by soldiers. There are children who have experienced long interrogations in prison, children who have been prevented from studying when their schools and kindergartens were closed down. These are children who know the Jew, the Israeli, only as a soldier shooting to kill, who beats and humiliates. Ladies and gentlemen, on this day, the 9th of December 1993, exactly 6 years ago, all these children joined hands in the battle of freedom with the stone and the burning tire. They shouted their passion for liberty, for an end to oppression and humiliation, and for the hope of a better life, the hope of the Intifada. This is where our paths met.
Today we note with a particular sense of pride and satisfaction that through being truly African in our development approach and thinking, ORAP was chosen for this award. We consider this to be an honor to the whole of the African continent. ORAP and myself raised the Zimbabwean flag and that of Africa to the height of international recognition, particularly from the village. I want to take this opportunity, therefore, to extend my gross thanks to the Right Livelihood Award Foundation Committee, who not only have honored me today, but have recognized African rural people's talents and gifts, which have over the years been buried with our own culture in the rubbles of externally driven development. Rural people work the hardest of all the world's people, yet they are often the least recognized. And ORAP has worked hard to disseminate the experience of these people internationally. We thank you for this recognition. What remains now is for us to achieve sustainability. With this prize money, this prize money will go towards making our development more sustainable. At this stage, I would like to challenge, encourage, and stimulate well-wishers to follow your footsteps and support such efforts as we have had tonight. Rural people's efforts would not have been possible without the support of faithful partners and our governments, whom I'm sure are proud to be part of this special ceremony. ORAP has had resounding achievements, not only in motivating communities, but also in concrete, tangible results, which really gives a different picture of the African that my friend who introduced me was relating to. We have provided water for irrigation and domestic use to almost 250,000 people. Food production and distribution has improved by 80%. Most families now have access to food. Most farmers have gone back to traditional and organic farming methods, which are environmentally friendly. Traditional seeds continue to be developed. Most farmers now grow small grains, which are drought-resistant and more nutritious. During the 1991-92 drought, which was the worst in living memory, families managed to live out of these previous year's harvest of these small grains before food aid was moved in. Through our well-developed rural networks, we were able to feed nearly 2 million people, reaching the remotest parts of Matabeleland North, South, and Midlands. These efforts prevented loss of lives. During this time, we also launched a drought recovery program, which included improved granaries and dam constructions. Using traditional architecture and designs, families have improved their homes. Rural kitchens, constructed mainly by women as the main family gathering space, are now cleaner, larger, and better ventilated. Family shelter has generally improved. All these efforts have improved child survival, family nutrition, and general health. Family groups put their meager savings together to facilitate the education of their children and to meet basic needs. This has helped rural people educate more of their children than was possible before ORAP started. A rural secondary school whose curriculum will include grassroots development will be opened in January 1994. The idea is to have a school which will help rural children relate better to their rural environment and that take interest in the development of their areas than live for the cities. Each ORAP association, which is a district, has a village development center, which people are developing as their local institution through which they can express and develop their social, political, and economic needs. Short practical courses in agriculture, mother-child development, building, woodwork, etc. are run at this level. Such centers are also used by our local government participants and other organizations. They are becoming centers of coordinating local efforts by the people themselves.
We did not begin with big grants and big offices. I started from my mother's cowshed in Dehradun, which is where I still run the institute, and I want to thank my brother and sister, Kuldeep and Meera, for having shared our family resources to make my work possible. I'm increasingly sensing that the primary threat to nature and people today comes from centralizing and monopolizing power and control, which inevitably generates one-dimensional structures and what I have called monocultures of the mind. The monoculture of the mind treats all diversity as disease and creates coercive structures to model this biologically and culturally diverse and rich world of ours on the privileged categories and concepts of one class, one race, and one gender of a single species. These three simultaneous colonizations are the inevitable result. The colonization of nature's diverse species, of women, and of the third world. The politics of diversity is, for me, the ground for resisting all three colonizations. Monocultures have created a violent world order, since violence is intrinsic to the project of transforming diverse and self-organizing systems in nature and in society into centrally controlled uniformity and homogeneity. Monocultures first inhabit the mind, are then transferred to the ground. Monocultures of the mind generate models of production which destroy diversity and legitimize that destruction as progress, as growth, and improvement. From the perspective of the monoculture mind, productivity and yields increase when diversity is destroyed. However, from the perspective of diversity, monocultures are based on impoverishment and on violence. They're highly unstable and non-sustainable systems. Monocultures spread not because they produce more, but because they control more. The expansion of monocultures has more to do with politics and power than with enriching and enhancing systems of biological production and our social life. For the powerful, monocultures are an instrument of increased power and control. For the powerless and for nature, they are an instrument of impoverishment. Monocultures are maintained only through high levels of external control and inputs. Ecologically, this leads to erosion of the Earth's resources and pollution of land, water, and the atmosphere. Politically, this creates centralized control and authoritarian structures. Making connections between the erosion of biological and cultural diversity and violence, ethnic and religious, and between centralized governance has been an important preoccupation for me in recent times, as region after region seems to slip into irreversible and violent civil strife. Not till diversity is made the logic of production and social life will there be a chance for sustainability, for justice and peace. If production continues to be based on the logic of uniformity and homogenization, women, third world people, and nature will continue to be marginalized and displaced, and vicious cycles of violence will engulf more and more communities. The Green Revolution in agriculture was an exemplar of the deliberate destruction of diversity. The new biotechnologies are repeating and deepening those tendencies rather than reversing them. Further, the new technologies, in combination with patent monopolies being pushed through intellectual property rights regimes in the General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs and other trade platforms, as well as the Biodiversity Convention, are threatening to transform the diversity of life forms into mere raw material for industrial production and limited profits. And even as we meet here in this award ceremony, the final negotiations are going on to create the most vicious monoculture that the world has ever known. A monoculture that will not create a level playing field for all, but will create an economic apartheid in which a tiny minority can participate in production and consumption, and the rest will live off the garbage they create. GATT and biotechnologies are simultaneously threatening the regenerative freedom of diverse species and the free and sustainable economy of small peasants and producers, which is based on nature's diversity and its utilization. As my involvement in these issues grew, the seed started to take shape as the site and symbol of freedom in the age of manipulation and monopoly of life in its diversity. Ethically and ecologically, unrestrained biotechnology development gives new tools for manipulations. Patents offer new tools for monopoly ownership of that which is by its very nature free. I thought of Gandhi's spinning wheel, which had become such an important symbol of freedom, not because it was big and powerful, but because it was small and could become alive as a sign of resistance and creativity in the smallest of huts and for the poorest of families. In smallness lay its power. The seed too is small. It embodies diversity. It embodies the freedom to stay alive. And seed is still the common property of small farmers in countries like India. Seed freedom goes far beyond freedom for the farmer from corporations. It indicates freedom of diverse cultures from centralized control. In the seed, ecological issues combined with social justice. I could see that it was the seed that would play the role of Gandhi's spinning wheel in this period of recolonization through free trade.